Welcome back, everybody, to another Flashpoint team interview where I have the wonderful NBK from OG on the line. First of all, obviously, this is the first time that OG will be competing here at Flashpoint. So, how are you and the guys looking forward to it?
I mean, when we came in, we expected it to be a LAN event, so that's why we were really excited to be able to do that. But obviously, with the evolution of everything, it changed. I mean, the season one was fairly successful for a first draft of what the future looks like for Flashpoint. And yeah, I mean, the teams are at our level in a sense that we feel pretty confident going against the whole field. And so we come in as favorites as well, which is something that is different from the other tournaments. So yeah, that should be a difference maker for us, and looking forward to see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys competing here as well. And I just wanted to start off by talking about the team's kind of overall growth over the past year. Of course, it's been almost a year since the OG roster was announced. You guys have managed to make it to your first ever grand final back in New York. You've been looking, pretty consistent recently as well. So can you kind of talk me through how you guys have kind of grown and developed as a team over the past year?
I think the most important thing for us was that we grew constantly ever since we created the team. There was not really a time where we became really worse, and then it was like our form was like in waves. It was really just straightforward, growing more and more. And I think it comes a lot down to a lot of communication within the team, and when there is something wrong that is happening, talking our way out of it. And I think that's one of our strengths that we have, is that we can figure things out on how to adapt, and that's also one of the, if not the main quality of Aleksib as a leader, to be able to adapt to all of that. And it's also that type of new gen of in-game leaders that are much more adaptive and working with the team in different ways to try to adapt to everyone. And so yeah, it was just constantly adapting on what roles of the players, who wants to have input, who doesn't want to have input, and all that kind of stuff, and making it comfortable for everyone as much as possible. And so I think it's been the trend for us, and the skill we have smart players, we have all of that, and it's just a matter of making everything work together, really.
Yeah, I want to touch on a couple of things from that. First of all, how you were saying, Aleksib's adaptations as an in-game leader, which we have definitely saw when we were at the most recent Blast event, listening to some of your comms. It was very impressive how he was kind of micromanaging the team during those particular rounds. Even when something, went slightly wrong, he would adapt very, very quickly to that. So how has that been for the team? Has that sort of been a constant development just from him personally? Have you guys been able to have input on that as well?
I think it really depends, because at the beginning of the team, when we created and we thought about how things were going, it would seem more that it was Aleksib and me that were going to take the things into hands in order to move forward. But very quickly, a lot of players, when it comes down to like official games and crunch moments, you have players like ISSAA and Valde that become very vocal and very, very active, sometimes too much, which is sometimes that was something that was problematic in some of our games, where Aleksib doesn't have the time to speak and to develop his ideas, and like he was being cut by one or another thing. And so that's like one example of things that were happening. And so it's just a matter of making it work and finding the right balance into all of that, really, because we knew that we were going to come in with people that have different voices and like that would voice their opinions, but ultimately it didn't come from the persons we expected it to be. And so it changed completely the dynamic of the team. So we had to adapt to a lot of things. Like, for example, at this point, I'm barely talking, if anything, in the game, even in preparation and all of that, because it would add one more voice to what's already happening, and therefore it would just make the team explode, because we would not be going in the same direction. And what I'm always proning is for the five of us to always go into the same direction, so that it's always better to go as five into a wall and try to break the wall together, than just being in different directions and not doing anything. So if I were to add like my voice on top of it, then it would just, I think nothing will work out at all. And so yeah, this whole constant work on that balance is the most important thing for the team, and it's something that we're working at on a day-to-day basis, really.
Interesting. How has that balance kind of been found? Now, obviously, you said that you don't have too much of an input, but how much input do the other players have, as opposed to Aleksib as well?
I mean, I think it's something that you can also see in game. You have like players have a bit more freedom and like can do a bit more things, and it's been found by just losing and then figuring out what to be done better, what place the player should have in like one or another situation. And yeah, I mean, losing has been the biggest factor into us improving in that sense, because you can practice as much as you want, you're never going to have the same situation and same reactions and the same instinct that you have in official games. And obviously what you want to have is to find the solutions for the moment when it's important, when the rounds are going to be tight and all of that. And so yeah, it's been an ongoing work, and the more experience we got by playing together, the more we could find the balance of all of that. Sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not working, and it's hard to always judge because a lot of games are different. When individuals are taking too many liberties, then it can lead to the downfall of the team. But if individuals don't take enough liberties, it also leads to the downfall of the team. So it's always like a thing where when you have a very liberal system that we're playing in with how Aleksib is leading, finding that balance is crucial. And it's something that you see in other teams, like Fnatic, for example, to me would be the best example, where for like years and years they've been creating that style, and at some point it became not good because there were too many liberties and the team that's adapted to it, and then you could just destroy them by knowing that mid-round, if they are 4-on-5, they're going to push everywhere, so you just have to wait for them. And so for us, it's kind of the same idea with different problematics. Working on it constantly and losing is the best factor really to get better.
And just in terms of like how that works actually practically with the team, you kind of mentioned sort of ISSAA and Valda, those were the two players who were being quite vocal, perhaps in some situations where Aleksib wanted to be more vocal. So how does that approach kind of work when you're trying to evolve and adapt the team that way? Is it sort of in terms of them saying, I want to make this certain move, and then Aleksib saying yes or no to it? Like how does it actually practically work for the team?
The main way is, when we lose, we generally have a fairly good idea of why we lose, and especially knowing the comms that happen within the rounds and stuff like that. Sometimes it is just a shock where people are talking too much in freeze time and Aleksib just can't call, and so this is just impossible, and then you just realize that very quickly, and then you just change it for the next games. Sometimes it's just the liberties that I was talking about, where individuals are making moves when it's not needed, or when it's not in a game plan, or when it's something that is not in the preparation of the game that we spoke about, and that we come in a game and then, I don't know, someone just wants to peek for no reason that was not at all part of the plan or whatsoever, and then we lose the round because of that, and then we eco, and then it's a double eco, and then whatever, it can just be very problematic. And so then it's just getting together and talking about those things, and for everyone to be smart enough individually to realize that if we want to make it work, we have to be in the right balance constantly and not overstep on one another's boundaries in the game. And this is also why right now some players have more liberties than others, because if everyone were to be too active and to do too many things, again, we would become a bad team, because we have to have a certain basis as a group of like some principles, of some defenses, some things that are more strict and rigid that we should have, that we don't necessarily have because of the game style that we have. And so it's all about getting experience together and not recreating those mistakes over and over again, which right now we still do a lot of the time, and not letting the frustration take over and changing everything from one day to another because the game went bad. We just have to follow the system that we're putting in place, and this is probably the hardest part, to just not give in to that frustration.
Yeah, because it's like more of a long-term goal, isn't it? It's not going to be like a short-term fix. That sort of that kind of balance going forward. And kind of speaking of that balance as well, I wanted to ask specifically about ISSAA, because when I was chatting to him at Blast, he was saying, he's becoming kind of the hype man for the squad. So how has that kind of changed? How have you seen him adapting in that kind of role?
Yeah, I mean, I think hype man is a big word. I think he's probably the most passionate of everyone, really, and especially at expressing it to the whole team on a very pure factor. And so I think he probably had one of the biggest growth within the team, where at the beginning it was very hard for him to adapt to to everything. I mean, the playstyle of Aleksib is very different from what we've been experiencing from all of our teams, and so that's why it took some time for us to like get to that level and get to that synergy as a group, which now we have. I think quite clearly, with like our average level being much higher.
Yeah.
And yeah, for ISSAA specifically, again, I think he wasn't expected to take that much space within the team, especially in game. We knew that he's someone that talks loud, that is very present when he's in a group, and that's completely fine, obviously. But we didn't expect him to take that much space within the team in game, right? We thought about him more of a passive player that you can just put in a position and he's going to kill everyone. But it turns out he's almost the opposite of that. So having to adapt for him and for the team to that thing made us change some of the approach that we have within the roster, and why it was complicated and why it is still complicated sometimes to make everything work properly and to be very stable. So, I mean, yeah, I think just like everyone in the team, he's done a very good job at improving, at getting into the system that Aleksib wants to make. And it's just an ongoing work that we have to do for him and for the whole team to like adapt all together, because I don't see this team as a team where like individuals have to shine through necessarily, but like we have a system in place where everyone can have a little bit of something in a game to make them happy.
Yeah, and I think somebody that's really impressed everybody recently has been Mantuu. Obviously, he was sort of one of the players coming into the OG squad way back December of last year. A little bit of a question mark just in terms of he hadn't been on the sort of top tier caliber of teams as well, and even
wasn't even an upper.
Exactly, right? Like him being able to adapt to that role is pretty nuts, and having an injury at the same time, that's kind of crazy to see how consistent he's become as a player. So from your perspective, how have you seen him growing into a completely new role whilst having to deal with an injury as well?
Right. I think the injury and the way he handled it was probably the best way I've seen anyone handle an injury as possible. I think it also makes sense because it's like his first year exploding in his career and playing at the highest level. So there's no way you let that go, regardless of the pain or anything like this. But I mean, he's like the good thing is that he's done absolutely everything he could to fix the problem he has and to get better in that sense, health-wise. And I know a lot of players would not have taken such good care of it, but because he knows the importance of it, and because he also knows that the whole organization, the whole players were always behind him, and like if we need to skip a tournament, if we need to take 10 days off, 2 weeks, whatever it is for his hand to heal, he always had our support 100%, because for his own good, like his own career, his own life, like everything. So he never had any pressure regarding that. But yeah, aside from that, in the game, at the beginning when he was being given to me in a way, like check out this guy. After watching 2 demos of him, I was 100% sure that he was made to be an upper, and the way he was talking as well, when we first spoke to him briefly, just showed the sign of a very intelligent person that can adapt very quickly. And I was not scared at all in terms of upping, because to me upping is not like a very hard role, because you're like put as a number 1 in the team, like you're going to be our most impactful player, go and kill people. And then when you get step number 2 into being an upper is like having more impact than just killing people. So taking initiative and getting peaks, putting your team 5-4 as much as possible, being in a good position, etc. But ultimately your role is like kill people, which is not something extremely hard at the end of the day. Because we create setups and everything for him to really adapt. That was the first part that was very easy for him to do, and I think it just be seen by everyone that he's a very skilled player and that he just manages to kill everyone if needed. And step 2 is for him to have more impact, and I think it's something that he's still growing into, and that joins the point of the whole balance in the team, right? If you have like very active players already, and the upper, which is supposed to be the second biggest voice in a way in the team to like do moves and take initiative, if he doesn't have that spot necessarily and he doesn't want to take the initiative or anything like this, then it can create an imbalance. But then you would need to have an upper that is very passive, which Mantuu isn't. So again, it's all about finding the right balance with the players, and for him also to have an impact, to be very vocal into what he needs to do within the team, and that takes time to develop as a player because you need a lot of experience, which he obviously doesn't have yet. So I expect him to grow much more than what he is right now, because he is the complete package. He's like very similar to Device in a way, despite the playstyle being different. The skill set is the same. He's extremely good with rifles. He's extremely good with upping. And what he needs to get from a player like Device, for example, is just the positioning and the impact he's going to have within the system. And to me, this is something that is constantly going to grow, and he's going to need years of experience like Device has. But ultimately, I can see him becoming the exact same player. And then his success is going to be dependent on the team he has around him. But as a player, I think is very similar in that regard.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point as well, and one that's interesting to pick up on in terms of, you know, you were saying the lack of experience with him as a player, but ultimately around him he's got, you know, players like yourself, players like Aleksib as well. And I read in another interview that you were telling him, you know, how, a couple of kind of hints from, you know, your knowledge as a player. You've had so many years of experience. You were telling him how to properly review demos as well. I thought that was really interesting. Is there anything you kind of been working on with him specifically since he's kind of been introduced into the team, maybe outside of the game as well?
Yeah. I mean, outside of it, not that much, except that, you know, obviously when he started opening up a bit more about his hand and the problem he has, like I just went straight to him and literally for any problem, like as a team, you need to let your teammates know about all those things instantly, because your team is here to support you, not to put you down. And so whenever you have a problem, regardless of what it is, you should be open to your teammates to say it, because everything can be misinterpreted. That word is tough. And so you don't want those gray areas where, I don't know, for like a week his hand is doing very bad and like he doesn't kill anyone in the game and he doesn't say anything. Then people might think, oh, maybe the playstyle is not good, maybe he's not practicing, maybe anything like this. And by being upfront about what's happening in your life in that regard that affects Counter-Strike directly, then you don't let anything happen like that. And so this is something that is very important within the team setup. And then aside from that, not really. I think it's important for him to grow as a player and to develop as his own, and not to be directed too much in the sense that he's an upper, and if you want to be efficient as an upper, you're not a support player. You don't have to adapt to others. It's others that are going to adapt around you. And what's more important is to help him find his way as much as possible. And so we've been working on a lot of things, because I'm sometimes in binomial, or like I just want to help him with like peaks and entry frags that he can do. And despite having worked a lot on it and having fought a lot of it with him or without him, it is not something that is in his instinct to necessarily do those type of things. And so it's a pretty useless approach if you don't get into his system and how he wants to approach Counter-Strike. And that's something that is just going to develop over time and can just guide him into the right things that I feel I did in my career overall, for him to have the best career possible and to be also a very efficient player, and just to help him in that regard as much as possible. And then the rest is just Counter-Strike. It's a game. The system that is being played is not mine. It's not the one that I've been playing for the past 10 years in the French scene. It's something completely different that I have to adapt to, and that is not easy to adapt to. And he has to just grow into that himself. It's not something that I can, or anybody can really tell him what to do.
Yeah. And then speaking specifically about Flashpoint, obviously we've seen the groups being announced very recently. Gen G is going to be your first opponent, which is going to be quite interesting, considering they're coming in with two standards, one of them being Exist, and they've got the three players that have been over at NA for quite a long period of time. So what are you making of them as a team? Because I feel like it's probably quite a few question marks coming into it.
Oh, I mean, definitely. Gen G is one of the teams that you can consider the weakest, I think, in Flashpoint at this point, because simply the lack of data they have, the lack of official games, and the fact that they come in with two stand-ins. It's like a lot of things that are just compounding into making you think this. So the only thing we have to do is be very careful when we come into the game, because obviously them coming in with stand-ins and having absolutely nothing to lose makes them a very dangerous team. I think you could have seen that with MIBR in the Blast group. Nothing to lose. They just loved playing. They were just super happy playing, very excited and all of that. And it became their strength instantly. Like, they surprised everyone, I think. And it can be really the same with them. They're gonna have a bit of time to practice, to get some new things in, to just surprise teams, and so what we have to do is to just get on top of them straight, not let them develop their game, and just have them play into our hands. And it's something that we struggle a little bit to do, to be honest, because our game style is very adaptive. So it's not easy for us to like shut down teams and like get them to play into our system, just like an Astralis team would do or a Vitality team would do, or Heroic as well. I just thought about them; they're the exact same teams. But yeah, it's all about being careful against them, really. We would have the better system, we would have the better team play, but now it's just a matter of not being taken out of it and not let them take control of the game and put too much chaos into it.
And then obviously you've got Cloud9 as well in your group, which has been very hyped up coming into this by the wonderful Henry G nonetheless. What are you thinking of them? Obviously, Alex, you played with him formerly, so it's going to be kind of interesting to see how these guys are going to be evolving as well.
Of course, yeah. I'm really looking forward to them because I think they're being hyped for the wrong reasons. In terms like, to me, it's a lot of fluff that is being created around them. It's just like a lot of talks, right? Like not very specific reasons to why they're going to be good. But I still do believe they're going to be a very good team because I like the combination of players that they got all together. I like that I think it really makes sense as a group what they have created, and so I'm very hopeful for them as a roster. I think they have good pieces. I think they have motivated players as well, and to me the main thing is going to be about managing on a human level within the team to like really put everyone on the same page, because if you look at the individuals, Alex is going to be able to create a very good system within the team, and lead them properly, and all the players are going to be solid individually. But now when you have players with all those different backgrounds and knowing how Alex leads, that is going to be a bit more strict and adaptive. I think that's going to be the main point and key for them to succeed. If they manage to put everyone on the same level, I think they're going to be a very, very solid team. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be. I'm looking forward to see how they play it, really, like how it happens in the official games, and what the output is going to be, because I think that team looks really solid on paper for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously rounding up with your group, you've obviously got Virtus Pro as well, which is going to be quite interesting. They've come through all the way through the Pinnacle Cup. They managed to claim their spot here through the qualifiers. And obviously we've seen them as a team, just last year? Yeah, God, these years, like, I feel like the months right now, I'm like, what month is it right now?
I know.
Yeah, obviously when they were with the Vanguard, making it all the way to the finals, most of them with their core of their Berlin major. So I don't know your perceptions of them as a team. How are you feeling about them?
I think it's pretty funny because they often go missing for like 2 or 3 months, and then they come back and they play like a million maps in like 2 months, and then they go missing for some time over and over again. And I just don't really understand why they're missing in a lot of tournaments. Like, I don't know, I don't even know if they're in IEM Beijing and other kind of tournaments, because they completely belong there. Like they're a very good team, and so we know what to expect from them. They have very, very strong individual. I mean, Kindar is obviously the standout player, I think, for them at the moment, and the map pool is also very strong always. So yeah, I just don't really know why they're not showing themselves a bit more than that. Maybe their objective is to come in and destroy everyone at Flashpoint and grab the first place. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I think everyone expects them a bit more now with what they've shown, like beating Navi, going like 14 or 15. I don't know how many best of threes in a row they won.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they're a very solid team, and I think with them in our group is definitely looking like the hardest at Flashpoint. But I mean, if you beat them now, you are less likely to see them in the playoff straight. So it's a compromise you have to do. Yeah,
true. I've been asking every player this I've been chatting to. So just to round things off, are there any particular teams that maybe aren't in your group that you feel like you're going to be having a rivalry with at Flashpoint?
I mean, we played a lot against Fnatic pretty recently, and they're always a team that is creating brawls when you play against them, and so we will be looking forward to play them against. I mean, to me personally, it's a team more like Cloud9, obviously, because Adex is in the roster. So if we play them, it's kind of the idea of we have to beat them, even though it's completely different. But I guess the only player, you know, that's there is something that happened last year, even though it was not like personal. It's just a competitive rivalry, obviously.
Yeah.
But aside from that, not really. I mean, I think that we come in as one of the favorite, like big Fnatic versus Pro as the 4 biggest teams probably. And for us, it's probably time that we show what we can do and not just floating around, reaching semis, final here, passing groups, but to actually go all the way and take it down. That's probably our real test.
Well, I'm really excited to see what you guys are going to be bringing here at Flashpoint. NBK, thank you so much for having a chat with me, and best of luck in the competition.
Thank you very much, Susan.